And we are live. It's Tuesday. I'm Eddie Stone. Nice of you to join me. We're just into October, and Sawyer reminded me this past weekend, I think I saw it on one of her social media posts, that we are less than 90 days from year end. Now, I know for her the motivation was she gets super excited about the holiday season. But it also means a lot by the year, right? To 2019, we've got a quarter of the year left. I don't know how everybody's feeling about their progress so far. I'm sure when you began the year, you had some goals and expectations. This is probably a good moment to think about those. You know, how close are we? You know, do we need to redouble our efforts to get there, or have we done enough work on the front side that we can kind of just glide into the year end? I know I've got some work to do. I had some pretty lofty goals and expectations for 2019, and I've accomplished quite a few of them, I should say. I feel good about that personally, and some things professionally because of having the opportunity to work with each of you. But I also really like to think about the last quarter of the year as my chance to really position for the year ahead, so 2020. And really, this is significant to me, at least, because we're about to roll up on a brand new decade, right? So a big, shiny new decade, not just a new year. And gosh, I mean, what a thing to be able to see a decade coming and to think about, you know what, where would I like to be in 2030? You know, what's my 10-year plan? I think we tend to think of things in a 90-day plan or a 1-year plan. I often sit down with people and talk about a 3-year plan. In fact, when I sit down with someone that's just getting started, and I always pose a question, I say, hey, if we do everything right, where do you see yourself in 3 years? I usually think in those kinds of chunks, but 10 years from now, where do you want to be? I don't know if you've given that much thought, but this is probably a really good moment to do that. As we kind of leap off into that discussion, today I wanted to focus on some of the frustrations that I hear sometimes when I'm talking to people. And invariably, those frustrations are centered on things that people can't control. And I want to caution you on that. I've been guilty of having that sort of same disturbance and find myself spending way too much time on events or people or things that just are completely out of my control. And one of the things that's made a difference in my success over the years is refining my ability to hone in on and identify what are those elements of my daily work, my daily effort that are within my grasp and that I control. And I've got a list of 5. You might have a list of 3 or a list of 9. I'd love to see you comment here in the comment section so I can learn, you know, what are the things that you've identified. But for me, there are 5 things that I know I can control no matter what chaos or anything else is going on around me. And the first one is pace. I can decide my frequency. And I certainly know when I first got involved in this industry 30 years ago, my talent level was lacking. I didn't show up with sort of this natural ability, and frankly, although I do things like this Facebook Live, some of that's because I've got a little bit of an inner shyness that things like this help me overcome. I kind of see that as one of my areas where I'm kind of breaking out of a comfort zone, and I've learned to do that. But what I lacked in sort of success rates, maybe that's the right way to say it, I could make up for with my pace. And so particularly early in my career, I would really focus on the fact that I could get up earlier than most people, or I should say I was willing to get up earlier than most people. And I was definitely willing to stay up later, you know, and it's amazing what even 1 hour before most get up and staying up 1 hour later than most can do to sort of bridge that gap between talent and ability and just effort. You know, we talked about sheer force of will on one of our calls a week or so ago. And so maybe that's kind of part of that sheer force of will. And so I've identified that pace is one of the things I can control. So as I go into the end of the year here, those areas where I've identified I haven't accomplished what I intended to, I can accelerate my pace. So that's one area where I'm in control. Number 2 for me is with consistency. And one of the biggest things I've found about the direct sales business, when you're building a team and an organization of a volunteer army, right? Everybody here, we're completely volunteer, right? And we're motivated by example. I think that's actually the most motivating aspect of what we do is the example that we set. There's also the cause, the cause of what we're doing, right? This is a vehicle to optimize health. It's a vehicle to do good. And we talk about it being a vehicle to get to the beach. And those can be causes. These can be intensely motivating based upon a person's circumstances. But all of those, if you're looking for leadership and guidance in that regard, you need to provide consistency to the people paying attention to the work you do. And make no mistake about it, people do pay attention to the work that you do. And so I can control consistency. And I partly really focus on that because I realized over the years that this is an industry, a business, particularly things like health habits, getting healthier, building an organization, really punitive when it comes to inconsistency. So people want things they can rely on. And so if they're looking at your pace, which you're in control of, if they're looking at your consistency, then these are elements that you can control. They may not reflect overnight results, but over time they build, right? It's kind of a stair-step sort of a situation where those efforts can build upon themselves. And that's how 3 years from now you get what you want. 10 years from now, when that shiny new decade is old and ready to be put to bed, that's how we will have accomplished the things that we want to. Number 3 for me is attitude. Dr. Viktor Frankl, in his great seminal book, if you've never read it, Man's Search for Meaning, I highly recommend it. I go back every so often and reread it. I think I probably read it 3 or 4 times at this point. It's a simple read, but the essence of the message is the last of the human dignity is the ability to choose our attitude. We may not always be able to control what physically is occurring to us, right? The physical environment that we're in, but we can control our response, right? And I think that's so critical to really consider. And one of the better ways for me to do that is to really try to be a student of your own work and observation, how people are reacting to you. If you want to see what kind of attitude you've got, look at the people around you that perhaps are being influenced by your attitude. Are you a whistle while you work, which I think is super critical to think about, or are you a person that finds reason to complain? There's always something we can complain about, but attitude is really that infectious variable that makes all the difference in the world. And it's one reason why there are some people we can't fully identify what it is we like about them or why we're attracted to them, but invariably when we peel it back, attitude has made a massive difference. So we've got pace, we've got consistency, we've got attitude, and then there's quality. Quality for me is number 4. And here's what I mean by that. When I first began, my quality was poor. I didn't know any better, right? I was a bit like a puppy with bad breath and those sharp little teeth and all the things that happen with a puppy, but they're cute, right, for a while. And eventually they've got to grow up and become a good dog or a good boy, so to speak, right? That's the term that we use. Quality is one of those things where you have to intend to be a student of your work and to really consider how you're doing and ask those questions and find people that you trust and know, mentors that can help you with observation of the work that you're doing. I'm not talking about people that are just critical to be critical, and I'm not a big fan of unsolicited advice or criticism. I really pay attention to my critics in that I want to know where they're coming from. And if I think it's with my best intentions, if there's love in their heart, then I want to hear what they have to say. But there are others that I will ignore because I'm not so confident in what their intentions are for me. But quality is one of those things that over time improves results. It's proven. The Japanese have a term called kaizen, which means continual, constant improvement. That's a real big issue for me. It's a hunger, it's a thirst for education, for improvement. And so that's one of the things I can control. Here's my habit with that. I really try to think about towards the end of the day, and it maybe doesn't happen every day, but it happens a lot of times, what happened over that day. I sort of play back the tape of the day as I'm getting ready to go off to bed and sort of check off in my mind, okay, that was good, that was consistent, that was on par with what I intended, that was weak. I've got to work on that area. I have a habit of getting up in the mornings and I stretch. And one of the things I can do when I'm stretching, and it's by no means is it a professional effort, but it's one that sort of satisfies what I'm looking for. It's a chance for me to really think about my day ahead and the things I can do better than things I did the day before that were consistent in those efforts. And so for me, quality, right? The effort that I'm making and getting better is number 4 for me. And then finally, number 5, that's resolve. And that's that one critical variable that separates those that enjoy the furthest reaches of success and those that fall short of their own potential. I'll take resolve over talent every single day of the week. And I think most people in sort of a coaching type of position or people that are working with teams and organizations would say the very same thing, because resolve, that sturdiness of intention, is the difference maker. Here's what I found. If you're talking to someone about a detox program, or you're talking to them about wanting to lose weight, or you're talking about a project, this month we're involved with supporting the Keep Abreast organization. So we're making these volunteer efforts, or you're talking about being in this vehicle and taking it to the beach. Not everybody's going to be a fan, right? And some people will be critics even before they know what you're doing or what you're talking about. If they see your resolve, your intention, right? You're not going to be a reed swaying in the wind. You're in control of where you're at. You're just simply saying, I'd like you to join me, but if you don't, it doesn't mean I'm not going to take the journey. That is that one difference maker above all things that I've seen during the course of my career that really separates where those larger successes come from. I think that's been a big part of the success that I've enjoyed in a number of my compadres that have taken this journey with me, is there was just a resolve, there was an intention. It wasn't that I'm just doing it for now. We talked about building an ark. This is a nonstop thing for me. I may stumble across the way, but I'm going to get there. And when I speak with people, I think that comes through in almost a non-verbal communication. So for yourself, here's the things to think about as we rush off into this last 90 or so days of the year. So we put a finishing touch on 2019 and make it all that it can be. Prepare ourselves that 2020 exceeds every expectation we had, and we give ourselves that first stair step for the decade ahead, is to consider your pace. Is your pace one that's going to take you where you want to go? Are you consistent with that effort? Are you displaying the kind of attitude that's going to help influence other people and draw other people to you and the work that you're doing? Is your quality improving? If you looked at yourself in the first month of this year, in January of 2019, as we head into the last quarter, is your work getting better? Where are you at from a qualitative standpoint? And then finally, and this goes back to lots of questions that we'll talk about on future lives together, is where is your resolve? Are you sturdy? Are you firm? And is it clear verbally and non-verbally with the people you're talking to? That's what I wanted to talk about today as we leap off into this 90 days. I couldn't be more excited about finishing this year with each of you. I applaud the efforts that you've made so far, and there's a lot of you that have many things to celebrate, and I celebrate those with you. But I think I'm even more excited about what's in front of us than behind us, not just the end of this year, but the year ahead. It's a great time to be alive. So I appreciate the chance to be with you today, and looking forward to talking to you this coming Thursday.